Hey everybody, it's Moonhorse again. Coming in just before this video with a little bit of information. We're talking about the University of Utah healthcare program. A friend of mine is not doing well and needs you guys, if you can, to look into this program, donate if you can, help out if you can. They're looking for, donations, people who can do live kidney transplants, the whole thing. This is a very good cause, and it's very, very important. So if you guys have anything you can do to help, or any way that you can help at all, please do. It would mean a lot to me. It would mean a lot to everybody. It's not just me, it's about everybody. Everybody's in this together, so we should all put together to actually do something. Like, if you're interested, or you have any way that you can possibly get in touch with this, or if you're in the area and you can do something to help out, you can contact them at uofulivingdonor.org. Or you can contact them at the phone number 801-587-8816. If you're interested in helping my friend specifically, when you get through to somebody or you're talking to somebody, ask for Corinne C. Powell. That's who needs the help right now. It's this person who asked me to kind of help out, not just for her, but for everybody. So if you want to help out, you want to contribute to a good cause, you want to do something good, really help these people out. They could use it. Alright, so now on with the show. Welcome back, everyone, to more of this interesting story. I'm gonna read some more just because it doesn't stop being interesting. This is, I guess we can call this part 2. Zarlas Experience. Actual experience was in 2003. The first draft of this was written in 2005 and then revised in 2009 for coherency. I was really only briefly involved with the entire Jin and Hojo thing. I never really talked to them much, and most of my experience with them was limited to a rather long weekend spent at their house way back when. Back in 2000 or 2001, I'd recently gotten into Jimmy Eat World. I knew that Jin and Hojo were friends with Funkmeister by this point, and they visited one another and that sort of thing. They never really talked to me, though, so I knew very little about them. Anyway, Funkmeister told me that there was a free Jimmy Eat World concert near where Jin and Hojo lived, and that we could stay with them for the weekend while we went to it. That sounded like a great deal, so I paid the money for the bus ticket, and off we went. I resolved to try and be a good house guest, and try my best to be civil and respectful, since I don't know Jin and Hojo, and I didn't want to be rude or anything. It's been a long time since all this happened, and as a result, my memories of the trip are a little faded and blurry at points. There's some kind of conflict about being locked out of the house when we first got there, but I can't recall anything more specific than that. I can't really remember my first impression of them either, so I assume they weren't any more eccentric than any other people I knew at first glance. Anyway, they had to give me a nickname, some sort of role play while I was staying with them. Everyone with them had some kind of Final Fantasy VII character, so I decided to roll with it since, hey, I'm a guest. They didn't know me, and I didn't know them, so they couldn't file me right away as one character or another. My favorite characters from the game at this point were Sid and Vincent, and neither of them were particularly like me. It wasn't even close to being Sid, and I think they might have already had one, so they decided to call me Vincent for the weekend. Again, rolled with it. I'm a guest. I was sort of uncomfortable because Vincent and Hojo in the game have less than pleasant history together, but it was really only an issue when Hojo was in character as Hojo. I don't really remember that happening very often offhand. Basically, any weird thing or belief they threw out, I went along with. They had magic battles, which was as far as I could remember. As far as I remember, involved waving staffs at one another and shouting spell names from the game. And they told me I had a lot of magic potential. They also had a red cloak that they said was Vincent's, and when we went out, they asked me to wear it. It was nice. Apparently the fact that I liked it was another hint that I was Vincent to them or something. Just odd stuff, but mostly I shrugged it off. All this is so vague for me now. I just have bits of memories and things that happen, like the trip to the grocery store and walking home, I think, but nothing more specific. Since we were guests, they wanted to have a nice dinner, and I chipped in to pay for it, of course. I didn't think too much of it at the time. One of the odder things that happened was something involving Sephiroth clone #pie. I don't know what that means. One night after no sleep and too much candy, I got kind of weird and spoke a bunch of gibberish since we were into Final Fantasy VII at the time. We joked that I was Sephiroth clone pie since the Seph clones all spoke gibberish, and it was just a running gag between me and Funkmeister for a while. No big deal, really, and I wouldn't have mentioned it except that Jen seemed convinced that Pi was real. Either Pi was a past life or Pi was someone I was channeling or something along those lines. But basically that Pi was a separate person from myself, which wasn't true, of course, but felt kind of awkward about it since she seemed really confident and I was trying to be polite and everything. She asked to speak specifically to Pi and even regressed to a childlike past life or something of her own to try and make him feel more comfortable, so I faked it. I mean, it's not hard to spout out stupid gibberish in a high-pitched voice. Awkward, yeah, but not hard. She seemed satisfied in the end, so, you know. Around the time we went to their house, I was going through an episode of what I call my sinus infection, but what actually turned out to be chronic bronchitis. Although I wouldn't learn this for another 2 years. Anyway, the big symptom for it was a very persistent and deep cough. Really annoying. If I recall, Jen said it was because I was allergic to magic. At one point, she said that she'd cast a spell that made me stop coughing and waved her arms and everything. Yeah, nothing happened. But I told her I felt better anyway. Guessed, after all. As one may guess, the spell didn't stop the coughing, so Jen said that something was making me cough. Something far away and more powerful than her magic. I was pretty young and stupid and wanted to fit in, so I felt a little worried about this. In retrospect, I was a moron, but hindsight is always 20/20, I guess. Anyway, me and Funkmeister went to the concert and had a great time. A lot of the field where it was being held was trampled into mud by all the people, so pretty much everyone was completely filthy by the end of it. I think Funkmeister covered the muddiness thing. And as it was, our weekend was coming to a close. We had to leave soon. Jen and Hojo really didn't want us to go and kept asking if we could stay another day or two. I was having fun while I was there, so I didn't really mind staying an extra day or two. We took shopping trips fairly regularly and walked around the town a lot, if I remember correctly. They asked for gifts and things, Jen mostly, I think. And since I was staying at their house and I was their guest, I felt like I should get them stuff that they really wanted. I didn't notice how much money I spent on the whole trip until I got back, but it was way more than I expected. Another odd insistence that I might as well mention is that my Walkman had broken on the way up to their place, and I wanted to get a new one, so we went to a store, wandered off by myself to investigate the various Walkmans, compare prices, that kind of thing. Then I heard the PA system click on. Excuse me, will a Vincent Valentine report to the front desk? Sort of an odd moment. Anyway, I grabbed the Walkman and went up to the front, and I vaguely recall Jen saying she was worried something about telling people where I was, but it was so long ago that it's hard to recall any more details than that. Probably the most bizarre moment of the whole trip was the past life regression. We all went into the bedroom and they put on The Nightmare Is Only Beginning from the Final Fantasy VII soundtrack. Jen and Hojo told that they'd see what characters we really were. At this point, I was worried about being exposed as a fake, considering they'd taken to me being Vincent pretty easily. If I wasn't actually Vincent or a video game character, things would no doubt get awkward. And I wanted to fit in. Believe me, I'm aware of how stupid this sounds now. Basically, we had to lay down while the music was playing, and Jen did a whole hypnotic regression type speech thing to bring out our past lives, if I recall correctly. As one may have guessed, this didn't work for me. Knowing me, I was probably trying to remember what number on the soundtrack the song was, given my weird obsession with video game music. But when they asked me who I was when I sat up, I said, yeah, Vincent. Everyone else was a Final Fantasy character, so, who else could I be? So anyway, at this point, I think they said I became him or something, and that his soul was in my body, or, I don't know, something along those lines. I didn't feel any different than before, and I didn't really buy any of this, but, play along. If I recall, me and Funkmeister kept goofing off and ruining the mood. Something else. I remember. We were on a bus or something. We were riding home at night. I remember me and Funkmeister talking about Jack. Not sure why I recall that so clearly, but, whatever. Anyway, this is also where the Professor Gath jokes popped up. Basically me and Soshi would imitate if Ifalana and Professor Gast with these ludicrous accents, and this amused Jen to no end. So there was this guy on the bus who was listening in or something. I'm probably sitting behind us or near us. I don't remember. Either way, it made us all kind of nervous. Jen said she was getting off at the next stop, and the guy got off at the next stop. Generally creepy stuff like that. Since I'm naturally a paranoid person, I thought this guy was pretty creepy too. Jen said he was a demon kind of thing and was after us. Pretty sure this played into what happened later. Okay, I gotta give some background info here. I wouldn't normally talk about it, but without this information, there won't be really any context for this. When I was like 14 or something, I was molested by a friend of our family, who I call the bastard. Yeah, I bet you do. Anyway, as mentioned, this happened when I was 14, and normally I would not have any bearing on this, but the thing is that I totally denied this happened to myself, to everyone, for like 4 years. I didn't tell anyone, and I tried to convince myself that it never happened. I'd made it up. Or that if it had happened, that it was my fault, and therefore people would judge me if I told them. It's another reason why I kept it inside. Jeez. The year before I visited Jin and Hojo, I actually finally did admit it to someone, and myself, I guess, that it had happened. I never went to a therapist about it or anything. Mostly tried to deal with it by myself, so I was a bit fragile emotionally about this experience, as one may guess. Anyway, I was trying to deal with this whole thing when I was at their house. Normally, I wouldn't have thought this would be an issue, considering I started to accept it like a year ago at this point. Certainly wasn't thinking about it while I was there. But as it happened, a lot of things kept reminding me of him. I think the mentions of Vincent getting molested by Hojo or some creepy guy on the bus, the whole past life thing, the assertion that something was after me, and that's why I was coughing, things like that. Small things, but it was making me really uneasy. There were also tarot card readings and such while we were there. Jen used the exact same tarot deck I had as a kid, the Tarot of the Cat People, and told me my fortune using the exact same method outlined in the little booklet that came with the cards. I don't remember anything specific about the readings, except that there was always mentions of something coming after me, something, thus the coughing. If I remember right, later we played with a Ouija board, and that something or someone was trying to contact us. All of this setting the stage for what happened. Sorry. Anyway, all four of us slept in their bedroom on these futons on the floor. I remember feeling really awkward when Jin and Hojo would hit or kiss on each other, but I didn't say anything, I'm a guest. So I was lying on my back during the night and I started coughing again. I felt bad about this since I thought I was keeping people awake. And again, I really didn't want to bother anyone, but these were pretty deep coughs, not horrible, scratchy, or painfully necessary, but deep enough that you do them over and over again. So I coughed and coughed and coughed and couldn't stop. So of course I start panicking because I can't breathe and subsequently start coughing harder. Everyone wakes up, freaks out, still coughing, trying to get out the "I'm fine, hold on," because I didn't want to cause any trouble. Funkmeister, of course, knew I was having some kind of coughing fit and that I'd be fine, but Jin and Hojo immediately began screaming that we were under attack or something like that. Like some dark force had come into the room and was trying to get me, like they'd been saying the whole weekend. Frankly, I was a bit shaken, so I didn't argue. So I'm still trying to breathe and such, and Hojo and Jen are wandering all around the building, all around holding their staffs and asking me where this malevolent force was. I was currently staring off into nothing, which is something I do a lot when I'm thinking or listening to people or talking or whatever. It's not something unusual, so I'm staring at the corner of the room, just like, is that where it is? Is that it? What is it? And I'm just like, man, I don't know. And I started coughing, couldn't stop. I think I remember one of them, probably Hojo, trying to pet my hair or hold me at this point or something. It's really vague. I think Jin or Hojo asked me if there was anyone who ever wished me harm or who would want revenge on me or something like that would be attacking me. I must have mumbled something about maybe it being the bastard or something. I don't know. I wouldn't have explained it much further than that. I think Soshi gave the ultra-condensed version of what happened to me, and just like that, Jin and Hojo decided it was him who had given me this cough, and he was coming after me now. Looking back on this seems almost cartoonish. It all seems so ridiculous and unreal, like some kind of bizarre dream. I mean, the bastard couldn't astral project his way through a paper bag. He's the opposite of spiritual, and he wouldn't want revenge on me. I mean, nothing ever happened to him for, doing that. At this time, however, I was totally terrified at the thought of him, which isn't that unusual. I'm still terrified of him. And I was probably hyperventilating or something. Jen threw a bunch of salt around in a circle and cast some spells or something. It's hard to remember all now. I think she said that he couldn't get me because she threw up some spirit ward or something, and I'm pretty sure I remember her saying that the guy on the bus was possessed by him. Something along those lines. Anyway, that unpleasant incident aside, we ended up staying there 2 more days, longer than we should have. They were very insistent that we stay, and it was hard to say no. I mean, apart from some awkwardness here and there and the unpleasant experience mentioned above, I generally had a good time. After that, I heard very little from either of them. I was Vincent, just for the weekend. But that was all. Actually, I think one of them, can't remember which, did try to IM me a few times, but we never really hit it off. They got a new Vincent pretty fast, but if I remember right, they always went through Vincent's pretty quick for some reason. However, I do recall much later, maybe a couple of months or something, that one of them called us late at night when Sochi was asleep. They said something about Jen's mom, the Queen of Fairies or something. I don't remember it exactly. And honestly, it was really bizarre. I, of course, had no idea what they were talking about. I do remember them being disappointed that I answered instead of Funkmeister. Anyway, they tried to explain the situation to me, but I seriously was way out of the loop and had no idea what they were talking about. They just told me they needed to talk to him right away. It was urgent. Something about Jen, breaking or something? I don't know. Never did find out what happened. The only other time I was ever contacted by them was when I was back home over the summer. I live in California, a million miles away from all this. I got a phone call from them, which surprised and deeply confused me at the time since I barely ever spoke to either one of them since that weekend. And I didn't exchange any personal information with them, much less my California phone number. Pretty weird. Anyway, they told me that Yasha had gone missing and they were worried. Of course, I was off in California, so I had no idea. They asked if she had talked to me, and I said no, and that was the last thing I heard about was shoes getting stolen or something. I asked them some questions, like where she said she was going, or if she left any notes, or if she was unhappy, or if her dad called, or anything like that. But I don't think they answered most of them. They just said they were really worried about them, and they had no idea why Funkmeister would have up and left. Of course, after this, I was hugely worried, dug around everywhere trying to find my kind of journal post that would tell me what happened, but nothing. I ended up freaking out until Funkmeister showed up again. I don't think I ever talked to either one of them after that. That was some weird stuff, but thanks for watching, everybody. You can like, comment, and subscribe, and I also have a Patreon. That'd be really cool if you want to contribute to that. Okay, bye!